What's going on, team? It's good to see all your smiling faces. It's raining out today. Pretty crummy weather, so I'm not able to go out and shoot some wildlife like I was hoping to. So instead, I'm going to talk to you guys about three practical ways you can improve your wildlife photography skills. I think these are all things that I have started to implement into my photography game over the last year or two, and it's really started to improve some of the shots that I've been able to get, as well as put myself into some really amazing spots to experience some really phenomenal events. So I think this is something we can all improve upon, and that I hope somebody out there can take some of the away this and start implementing some of these things into their game and hopefully improve their experience as a wildlife photographer. So let's dive right into it. The third thing, patience. I know this sounds a little bit cliche, but patience is something that's super important to have as a wildlife photographer. And the way I want to talk about it is the fact that I think a lot of people, myself included, when you start shooting wildlife and you're just entering the game, spend the majority of your time going out into a park or a nature sanctuary somewhere and moving around looking for species, looking for wildlife and trying to find them, rather than really taking your time and implementing a lot of patience to let the natural world adapt around you. So what I mean by this is I think that we would all benefit from going out into the field and stopping in the woods somewhere and just sitting down, hiding yourself, and spending half an hour and just to let the natural world adapt around you. Because what ends up happening is you start noticing things you never would have found before. You start finding small details in the natural environment that are just amazing things that you would have missed if you just walked through that area, as well as some of the more elusive shy species that you don't normally see are going to get comfortable with your presence there and start behaving naturally around you, and you can end up taking some really amazing photos of species you would entirely miss if you had just walked through. So I think that's something that we can all try implementing into our photography game. This is going to allow you to put yourself into scenarios where you can start seeing things you would have missed normally. So I think that's something to give a shot at. 2, understanding wildlife behavior. This is an interesting one because it takes a lot of time in the field. It takes a lot of research as well, and something that sounds a little bit, to me anyways, I find it fascinating, very interesting to do, but I think a lot of people would rather spend a lot of time looking at their camera specs and how to improve their autofocus system and how to better situate their custom button controls and this type of thing. But I think understanding wildlife behavior is probably one of the most important things, and it's something we could all spend a lot more time doing, myself included. And the reason this is so important is that animals generally repeat very similar behaviors day in and day out, week in and week out, and seasonally as well. So if you can go and predict where they're going to be for a migrating species or a date, something that's repeating the similar type of day habits or patterns, and then go and put yourself into that scenario before this species does this behavior, you're going to be there already set up and ready for it to happen, and you can allow yourself to take some amazing photographs as well as put yourself into some amazing experiences by understanding the natural behavior of an animal. So I think spending a little bit more time on understanding wildlife behavior is something we can all improve upon. And the number one thing that I think is a good way to improve your wildlife photography is shoot in the morning and in the evening. The first hour or two and the last hour of the day is the most important time to go out and shoot wildlife, and it's this for a couple of reasons. The first being animals are most active in the morning and the evening, generally. Not all species yet, but for the most part, species are moving around looking for food early in the morning and then just before it gets dark. The other thing is you're going to expose yourself to some species you would entirely miss if you only shot in the middle of the day. And this is because those windows on either side, you can see nocturnal species, so some that just go out at night are still just going to be out in that first light and are just going to be waking up to go out and start foraging right when the sun is starting to set. So you're going to put yourself into scenarios to experience the most amount of activity and animal behavior by shooting in the morning and in the evening. And the second part to this is the fact that the lighting is the best quite often, because it's the golden hour, which is the first hour and last hour on either sides of the day there when the sun is the lowest in the horizon. It creates really nice warm light that can backlight some of your photos or side light it with this really nice golden warm lighting. And I think that these can be some of the most spectacular images you can happen in the morning and the evening. So if you're someone who doesn't have a lot of extra time because you're working and you only have a couple hours a day or a week to shoot wildlife, spend them in the very first hour of the day or the last hour of the day, or one or the other. And I think you're gonna massively improve the number of shots that you get, as well as the number of amazing experiences with nature you get to see. So yeah, that's the 3 things I wanted to talk about briefly, and I hope it helps somebody out there. These are things that I'm trying to implement into my photography game more consistently on a daily basis. And I think that this is going to allow people to really start improving their game, as well as exposing themselves to be able to get some really, really excellent shots. So thanks so much for tuning in, and good luck out there shooting, and hopefully you get to take some awesome photos. Cheers.